Tonight, you're going to lie down, close your eyes, and disappear into a world your body invents from nothing. No camera, no script, no warning. And for the next several hours, some part of you is going to run, fall, fight, and occasionally kiss a stranger who somehow makes complete sense at 3 a.m. and none at all by breakfast. You'll wake up, you'll barely remember it, and you'll do the whole thing again tomorrow night for the rest of your life. Here's the question nobody quite has the nerve to ask out loud. Why does your brain do that? Every night, for roughly 2 hours total, your brain builds an entire universe, populates it with people who don't exist, drops you into stakes that feel unbearably real, and then deletes almost all of it before your alarm goes off. If a machine did this, you'd call it a malfunction. Your body does it on purpose every single night and has been doing it for as long as there have been brains complex enough to sleep. So let's start where all good mysteries start, with a dead end. For most of the 20th century, the leading scientific explanation for dreaming was frankly a bit insulting. In the 1970s, a Harvard psychiatrist named J. Allen Hobson proposed what became known as activation synthesis theory. The basic idea: during REM sleep, your brainstem fires off random electrical noise. Your cortex, the thinking part of your brain, receives that noise and does what it always does. It tries to make sense of it. It builds a story out of static. Under this theory, dreams aren't meaningful. They're your brain's desperate attempt to narrate garbage. Imagine a radio picking up interference and trying to convince you it's a song. For decades, that was more or less the official answer. Dreams are noise wearing a costume. Except that explanation has a problem. And once you notice the problem, it's hard to unsee it. If dreams were just random noise, you'd expect them to be, well, random. Any kind of scene, any kind of event. Total chaos with no pattern at all. They're not. They're eerily consistent. A Finnish cognitive scientist named Antti Revonsuo spent years cataloging what people actually dream about across cultures, across continents, across completely unrelated populations who had never spoken to each other. And the results were strange. Being chased, falling, being unprepared for a test, losing teeth, being unable to run properly, legs heavy like wet sand, threat after threat after threat, showing up again and again. In societies with no shared language, no shared media, no possible way to have copied the idea from one another. If dreaming were just static, why does the static keep telling the same handful of stories? Revonsuo's answer became known as the threat simulation theory, and it reframes dreaming completely, not as noise, not as nonsense, as rehearsal. Think about what a threat rehearsal machine would actually need to do if evolution were building one from scratch. It would need to generate danger without real risk. It would need to let you practice fear, practice fleeing, practice fighting without a single tooth or claw ever touching your actual body. It would need to run these simulations somewhere private, somewhere your muscles wouldn't act out the danger and hurt you in your sleep. And it would need to do this constantly, night after night, because the world your ancestors lived in never stopped producing new things to be afraid of. That is, weirdly, an almost perfect description of what a dream is. Here's something that makes this theory land even harder. Your body goes through a process called REM-atonia during dream sleep. Your major skeletal muscles are essentially switched off, paralyzed functionally for the duration of the dream. You can be sprinting from a bear in your mind and your legs, in the actual bed. Don't move an inch. That's not an accident either. A team of researchers studying REM behavior disorder, a rare condition where this paralysis fails, found something disturbing. People with the disorder don't just imagine fighting or fleeing during dreams. They physically do it. They throw punches. They leap out of bed. Whatever their brain is simulating, their body tries to perform, which tells you something important. The dream isn't a passive movie playing in your head. It's active enough that your body would act on it if it weren't being held back by its own internal safety switch. Evolution didn't just give you a rehearsal space. It gave you a locked door to keep the rehearsal from becoming real. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I don't dream about lions. I dream about missing a flight or showing up to work without pants, or an ex I haven't thought about in 6 years suddenly reappearing to say something devastating in a parking lot. That's the part that took researchers the longest to explain, and it's arguably the most interesting piece of the whole puzzle. A sleep researcher and neuroscientist named Matthew Walker has spent decades studying what dreaming actually does to your brain overnight. And one of his central findings reframes the whole threat rehearsal idea for the modern world. Threats, it turns out, were never just physical. For your ancestors, sure, a predator in the dark was a threat, but so was being cast out of the group. So was losing status. So was a broken alliance with someone whose help you needed to survive winter. Social threats have always mattered as much as physical ones, sometimes more, because in a small tribal band, being abandoned by the group was frequently a death sentence in its own right. Your dreaming brain doesn't seem to care whether the threat is a saber-toothed cat or an awkward conversation with your boss. It treats emotional danger with the same rehearsal logic it applies to physical danger. That's why the flight you missed, the person who left you, the humiliation you're still embarrassed about, keep showing up recut into new, strange configurations at night. Your brain isn't torturing you for fun. It's running drills. It's trying, in its clumsy, half-broken, occasionally ridiculous way, to prepare you for something that already happened, or something it fears might happen again. Walker's research adds one more layer that changes how you should think about a bad night's sleep. During REM dreaming, your brain processes emotional memories while your stress chemistry, specifically noradrenaline, drops to its lowest levels of the entire day. You are, in a very real sense, revisiting painful material in the one biochemical state where it's safest to revisit it. Dreaming, according to this view, is a kind of overnight therapy session your brain schedules for you without asking permission, replaying the hard thing, but with the volume of the panic turned all the way down. That reframes something you've probably felt without having language for it. Ever notice how a problem that felt unbearable at midnight sometimes feels smaller, more survivable by morning? That's not just rest. Some researchers believe that's your dreaming brain quietly defusing the emotional charge attached to a memory overnight, stripping away the sting while keeping the lesson. Here's where it gets stranger still. This isn't just a human thing. Researchers studying rats running mazes found something remarkable when they recorded brain activity during sleep. The same neural firing patterns that lit up while the rats were awake and navigating the maze lit up again while they slept. In the same sequence, like the rat's brain was replaying the run, not randomly, in order, rehearsing the exact path it had taken hours earlier. If a rat's sleeping brain is quietly running training simulations of a maze, it becomes very hard to argue that dreaming is meaningless static in any species, including yours. So here's the picture that emerges once you put all of this together. Long before there were beds, or bedrooms, or alarm clocks, or any of the trappings of modern rest, something in the ancestral brain discovered that the safest place to practice danger was inside a body that couldn't act on it. A closed simulation, run every night, using whatever material the day had supplied, predators at first. Then, as human life grew more socially complicated, rejection, status, betrayal, shame, and love, the furniture changed completely. The underlying machinery didn't. You're not broken because you have anxious dreams. You are running an ancient, mostly invisible maintenance system, one that has kept every ancestor you have ever descended from just a little more prepared for the next blow, whether that blow arrived with teeth or with words. And here's the strangest part of all. You will never remember most of it. The vast majority of your dreams evaporate within minutes of waking, gone before you've even reached for your phone. That might feel like a flaw in the design. It might actually be the opposite. A rehearsal doesn't need to be remembered to work. Athletes running drills don't need to consciously recall every single rep for their muscles to learn the movement. Somewhere underneath conscious memory, the practice still counts. So tonight, when you lie down, close your eyes, and disappear into a world your body invents from nothing, remember this. It isn't nothing. It's rehearsal. It's the oldest form of practice your species has ever had, running quietly every single night, asking nothing of you but sleep, and asking for it again tomorrow, whether you remember agreeing to it or not.